Okay, hi everyone. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. So our event is related to the topic AI, AR, IR. What's next? Sorry, it's not so easy to pronounce. So first, the first part of the event will be investors panel. We will discuss a few topics on the latest industry trends. The second part of the event will be a pitching session, few startups, and all investors who got the score sheets. We would be very grateful if you can fill it in during the pitching session so that we can give our startups a feedback. And so first I will introduce myself and my company. Let me share screen.
Elena, can you send those sheets in the chat here? Because I don't have one in front of me and I need to print it out.
Okay, great.
How do I fill it out? Can I do it electronically or not?
I will send you an email right now, okay?
Okay, thanks.
So Astra Global is, one moment, I think I need to do something like, yes, something like this. Yes, Astra Global is a global company introducing investors and high potential startups. And we are working with both sides of the ocean, US and Europe, and we want to try our best to connect both sides of the ocean, startups with investors, investors with investors, and be like a bridge company to unite the world. Yeah, so basically what we do is we help startups to do the strategy of approaching the right VCs, of choosing the right VCs to approach, of evaluation if they're ready at all for VCs or not yet. And then we also can help startups with structuring advice, since we have a lot of experience with deal structuring and legal experience. And this event we do together with Gold Ventures investment company. It's an accelerator program based in Israel, actually, and also having partners worldwide. They help us with startups, with selection of startups, and they can also help to find a capital at the European Union level from the public sources in order to make VC investments more profitable and less risky. And what I want to do now is I want our panelists to have 1-2 minutes to introduce themselves, and we will start with Chris Fisher.
Hello, hi. My name is Chris Fisher. I'm based in Hong Kong, working with a Series A focused venture capital fund called Click Ventures. I'm a managing partner at Click Ventures for about 3 years. We look for companies that have some form of network effect, preferably several different kinds of network effect, which leads us to investing quite a few companies involved with AI because of the effect related to data and how it improves AI. Yeah, I guess that's my intro.
Thanks. Gilad?
Hi, everyone. So I'm a partner in Target Global. We are managing around $1 billion in Europe and Israel. We have early, late, and mobility funds. In the AR/VR space, we have other pockets, several companies in that space. I was heading the board of Plessy Semiconductor that recently was announced.
Dude, it's
significant deal with Facebook in that space. Israeli, before that, I was involved in 2 companies. One I sold to Apple and one to Google.
Cool. Ingrid?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. Today, I'm representing the World Business Angel Investment Fund. I'm one of their senators. I also am faculty in the entrepreneurship division, and I'm looking forward to meeting everybody during the pitch.
Thank you. Gary.
Yeah, my name's Gary Fowler, and I'm a serial entrepreneur and 15 companies. And I'm also an investor. We have about $100 million fund, an SPV, creating another $100 million fund. Although GSD is so what we have is a venture studio. That's one of my primary focuses right now, working in areas of artificial intelligence, semi-supervised, unsupervised, and helping those companies go global. So I've done a NASDAQ IPO, you know, I've raised hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm looking for the best AI companies in the world. We jump into them and bring our team in and help those companies go to the next level. So Click Software, which I talked about earlier, that was sold recently, was one of the original companies I was involved in. Eva.ai, I grew to about a $600 million company, actually a little less than 3 years, with David Yang from Russia. So no, we're looking for incredible companies, and I'm also an investor.
Okay. Yash.
Hi, everyone. My name is Yash Hemaraj. I'm a partner at BGV, Benhamou Global Ventures. We are an early stage enterprise focused venture firm. We are based out of Valley, but we have an office in Israel as well. What we do, we invest in early stage seed and Series A companies, companies that are built out of innovation hubs like Israel, France, India, etc. Help them make a transition to the Valley. So we are a cross-border firm. All of us in the firm have been operators in the past. We've built companies, Fecom, Palm, and several startups. We've been investing for over 15 years. And we are investing in what we call the fourth phase of enterprise innovation, what we call Enterprise 4.0, which is a combination of AI technologies, but also combining them with workflow automation and having unique data sets to power both of them. So we have about 30 companies in our portfolio right now, and about 18 exits. And most recently, we also had an IPO on NASDAQ. So again, very active with our portfolio companies, and have several companies that are in this AI, VR, AR, VR, and IR, MR, and trends. So I would love to participate in this discussion today. Thanks for having me here.
Okay, great. Henry. Where is Henry?
Hello, everyone. Yeah, so quick introduction maybe to myself and Amplifier. We're very much a specialized VC, so we invest purely in what we think of as the supply chain. So in layman's terms, kind of movement of things, or as we like to think of it, sort of back-end operating system to the world economy. And we've been investing now since the beginning of 2019. So we're a fairly fresh-faced fund, single LP private vehicle, and small portfolio, 4 or 5 companies that we've built really fall into that space of logistics and mobility primarily. Though a lot of it is around the areas of deep learning and AI and smart enterprise applications, like predictive freight or performance optimization. We do a fair amount in the area of autonomy, both for transport and robotics, but specifically, more often than not, in off-road geofenced applications. And again, in that kind of last mile mobility. So we're all aware, obviously very topical, but the Amazon effect and the pressures we're feeling in last mile fulfillment or congestion. A lot of the solutions we look at are addressing the challenges in there. And last but not least, the fintech layer within the supply chain, where there's about $1.7 trillion or so of effectively missing finance in the system today. So we look a lot at alternative lending platforms as well. So very much have that sort of specialized focus. But it is an area, of course, that touches all of our lives and has a very significant impact on both the global economy, but also our environment, and faces a number of significant challenges. So thank you very much, Elena, for having me today.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Sergio.
Bonjour, hello everyone. So I'm Sergio from BCF Ventures, joining from Montreal, Canada. As most of you must know, Montreal and Canada is pretty much the hub for artificial intelligence. Like most of the deep research in AI that has been developed worldwide has started in Canada for the last 50, 60 years. We have the top researchers in AI, Yash, Benhamou, and so on, that has been the PhD professors, instructors for many of the top researchers right now working in top organizations. BCF Ventures, we're a Canadian corporate venture capital fund associated to BCF. It's a $100 million each revenue corporation. We focus at the seed stage in enterprise software. We invest in legal technologies, supply chain, and health technologies. For the upcoming, I would say 2 years, our focus would be in artificial intelligence and supply chain. So actually pretty much in the same way that Henry. We have recently established a partnership with Scale AI, which is the Canadian supercluster in artificial intelligence and supply chain, sponsored by 500 Canadian corporations and the Canadian government with a budget of close to $100 million. So we partnered with them and we started a project that will be fostering the relationship between startups in supply chain and those corporations to establish paid pilot trials in Canada, so we can foster the innovation in our country and try to scale globally these kind of corporations and startups. So thank you for this invitation.
Great. And Francesco.
Yeah, hi all. I'm probably like late to the party because I got brought in literally like yesterday. So good to see you all. Francesco here from London, working with Balderton, which is a VC fund based in London that invests in European companies, usually like a Series A level or even like seed stage, honestly. We've been, we actually are like pretty generalist. So we've been investing like in several different companies in different markets for the last 20 years now. We just launched our new fund 6 months ago. So we've been like investing with this new fund in probably like really like 7, 8 companies, 3 or 4 of which during the pandemic, which has been like pretty good for us. On me specifically, my PhD was on machine learning and finance. So I started working on sentiment analysis for financial markets before joining, like the VC industry overall. Then I joined like a VC fund in London a few years back, and I never actually left this ecosystem. So right now I'm mostly in charge of all the data and research activities at Balderton.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And I would like to introduce Richard Ward from McKinsey & Company, who will help me with moderation of the panel. Richard, hi. Please shortly introduce yourself and start the panel. Thank you so much.
Hi, everybody. I'm Richard Ward. I'm with McKinsey. I lead our enterprise VR, AR, XR practice, but I also happen to run our data science team for oil and gas. And so I kind of have, as with many of you, a foot in both worlds, if you will. I think one of the interesting things that has been happening, of course, is this idea that the COVID-19 situation, I don't think was in anyone's business plans at the end of last year. And so what we have is certainly a disruption that has happened to the larger global economy as well as the startup economy that has happened. And I think one of the interesting questions for those for the startups that are existing and the investments that you have, as well as those that are now in this period of seeking further investments and trying to work in that, is this question of whether under Corona, are you finding that companies and the investor community itself see this as an opportunity to either lean in? So our investment thesis was correct, So, you know, Henry, obviously on the side of the logistics things, the ability to move things to greater logistics instead of hands-on delivery is going to be an opportunity. Is it an opportunity for something for the investment thesis is correct, but the situation is one in which we should lean back, perhaps conserve cash, conserve resources. We think this is the right thing, but we need to wait it out a bit. Or is it entirely possible that everything has been destroyed and it's time to pivot? Right, you know, and I think that one of the questions that I would ask is whether these, you know, in your experiences, what you're seeing, what kind of a relationship are you seeing? What kind of mix of these reactions are you seeing? Is there an overall trend, or is it very kind of specific to each company? Henry, I'm going to pick on you first because, of course, I picked on you first.
Absolutely. Well, I think, you know, to some extent, supply chain is very topical right now for obvious reasons. You know, we think this has been a massive space for a while, but we've seen a lot of funds, certainly the generalist funds, you know, Balderton and others who are fairly agnostic, you know, moving in this direction in the last few months. And I think that's because, you know, we have a very clear and very kind of deep drilled investment thesis, which identifies really opportunities based on a couple of things. One is the readiness of technology to solve a particular problem, and ideally a very large pain point where the customer therefore is kind of moving through accelerated adoption curves and at the same time requires limited transformation in terms of adopting that technology in the first place, right? When you get that mix, you can overcome a lot of the difficulties in B2B of actually scaling these technologies in a meaningful way for a venture capital fund to achieve its returns, right? So within that kind of thesis, we've seen already post-COVID a number of themes that were maybe we thought were probably ones for the future, i.e. slow burners, slower to deliver return, accelerating in front of us. I give you a couple of examples. Take IoT, supply chain traceability. Everybody wants it, everybody talks about it, nobody wants to pay for it. And so, you know, some of the more cutting edge technologies in like system on chip or printed chip technologies where you can start to trace on a product by product level, suddenly there's a kind of ROI attached to that where your supply chains are fragmenting and you need new agility, whether you're a shipper or a carrier, to justify kind of going into that space and investing into it, all the necessary kind of software and AI that can underpin that. Or take, you know, we just recently last week closed a deal with Micropsy Industries, very much on the kind of deep tech AI side of robotics. You know, there have been a number of players that, you know, Covariant recently came out, Vicarious and so on out in Silicon Valley who've been trying to address, you know, how do we get robotics to actually operate in a way that is both agile and kind of adoptable at scale in both manufacturing and logistics. And we always thought that was a bit of a slow burner, that like break point that came post-COVID where whole production lines were shut down, where warehousing systems came under massive pressure. You know, suddenly there is a very different speed of adoption and kind of readiness to accelerate. And that means one of two things. One is that suddenly certain elements within robotics autonomy become much more viable investment opportunities, and we're actually putting cash to work on those opportunities today, even given the economic situation, and that, you know, they can still thrive despite of the economic situation. But also we've, you know, what I think we've also seen is that they really, the way in which you're investing, you need to be a little more aggressive on the technology in some respects. And previously, certainly in these B2B environment, you can often say, well, let's go for the low hanging fruit. Let's find a solution that works for the truck driver or works for the, you know, the warehouse today and that they're going to adopt and play with. And actually you can start to move more towards those edge cases as well. So those are some of the ways in which, you know, already certainly things have changed, but actually changed in a way that means we're still can be, you know, happily pursuing and putting our money to work in those opportunities.
So if you kind of say that, like, you know, obviously people in the current world don't really want to touch things. Certainly the thing they don't want to touch is other people, which, you know, Ingrid, given your focus on that kind of the healthcare area, how are you seeing the companies and the opportunities there? Is this a lean in, lean out, or pivot situation for the sector you're looking at?
Definitely for healthcare, I've seen a lean in for clinical trials. That's by far the biggest industry, specifically medical devices, of course, like was already mentioned. And then anything that has to do with R&D for new vaccines, of course, new medications, same pattern. Those are definitely everybody's is super interested in those. Now, for those, actually in the first quarter, we've seen more venture capital investment than ever in the history of the industry. So I would definitely say clinical trials comes first. The other industry where I see AI having a higher interest is as well in genomics. I focus a lot on precision medicine, and there I can say we've seen tremendous lately improvement in interest and understanding of how it could expand. Also in the combined power of blockchain and AI, which before everybody stayed away from, but now I've seen much more interest and again, willingness to invest in hybrid technologies. So if you had to rank them, definitely clinical trials, pharma, and then precision medicine solutions, which involve multiple categories.
Excellent. And Sergio, kind of looking at it more horizontally on a broader base from the technical base, are you starting to see as a result of kind of the COVID thing that there's been, a series of kind of like the core technology elements around AI that you're seeing that have been kind of like accelerated? Obviously, Zoom has leaned into the Corona problem, right? As an example. Or have you seen there's kind of a pivoting that people are saying, hey, we had a general kind of technical capability. Now we see a Corona specific opportunity and we'll pivot the business plan towards that. What are you seeing kind of, you're sort of a level down on the core technology sector. What are you seeing?
Yeah, so the core of our investment thesis was to, invest in enterprise software. And which means the digitalization of legacy processes. Most of these processes in industries and corporations are paper-based. So when you install a software, and in this case, you employ technologies such as like artificial intelligence to automate the process, you are creating some kind of modes. Pre-COVID area, what we notice in our portfolio is that the time to convert a corporation to a client was very long. We're talking about 9 months, 12 months of the sales cycle for conversion, because we had to educate, the corporation, the people working at corporations that were people were afraid of employing these kind of new technologies. What ended up happening, at least in our portfolio, is that COVID actually was the most amazing thing for our investments. Like every single company in the last 6 months has been increasing sales from 25 to 50% month after month. The sales cycle has been reduced from 9, 12 months to 3 to 6 months. Now it's in the area where kind of these corporations, because everyone is working at home, future of home, now they need to install these kind of technologies that are going to be digitizing the way they work and, bringing more efficiency, but they need it now. So to respect, are we pivoting? No. As a reaction, I think it's kind of easing up the process to implement this kind of new technologies at the enterprise level. And as an investment thesis about changing or pivoting the thesis, certainly not. This is the best time ever to invest in enterprise software and with AI.
Well, awesome. At least somebody's having fun. I think another question that's going to come up, and Chris, perhaps you can lean in on this, is obviously there's a geographical disparity on the timing of this problem. Are you seeing that there's an element of where perhaps China and the Asian area, which has really kind of been hit first and come out first, fingers crossed, have been able to kind of figure out the recipes for these things and now are better poised to perhaps, launch out into the United States and Europe, because we've already solved the problems in Europe, in Asia. Now we are, we already have the lessons ready to go. Or are you seeing something else?
Well, so China is and has been for a long time playing its own long game in the whole AI space. So there's been quite a lot of serious commitment to developing AI technologies and using it all throughout their various platforms like WeChat and in their ecosystem there. The COVID situation, I don't see that there's a huge impact there
So I think Chris may be having some signal problems. So I'm going to jump over to Gilad. I know that you've got kind of like this enterprise hard technology background, with the semiconductors and things of that nature. Are you seeing a similar situation? Because of course hardware and those types of things are a much longer wavelength for development cycles. Is it just a case of like, look, we're kind of maybe conserving cash a little bit or just blowing through because we're all waiting for this to finish? Or are you seeing a different type of thing? Or am I oversimplifying your area?
So a few comments. One is, in general, we as a fund, we try not to change our strategy because of, one-time event. We're still trying to look on the fundamental. Is the team is good? Is the company is good? And maybe now it's the right time to invest in things that were hit very strong, like travel, and not necessarily to go to the places that everybody go. So this is one comment. Specifically about hardware, we closed a very significant deal recently with Facebook on a company in UK and in the AR/VR space. And we see that the appetite of the big five in the US is as strong as ever been. Maybe at the beginning they were hesitating, but you see now the M&A groups of all those big five are seeing it as an opportunity to grab technologies outside. And I think if you will change your strategy because of COVID, regardless what you do as a VC, it might be a big risk. But what we see is that people looking on different fundamentals. For example, the team become very strong because suddenly you understand that you need a very robust team, even if the business model is strong, because when the company encounter problems, this team needs to solve it. Companies that were used to, let's say, mix between their GMV, ARR, pricing their company according their next 12 months forecast ARR or GMV, now they're becoming more rationalized. And those are the things that we enjoy seeing because then it means that we have more opportunities. But we are not necessarily saying this sector now is bad or that sector is good. We are just looking in every sector a very good company.
Okay. Gary, as we kind of like focus on the area where you have enterprise applications, HR focus, and those types of things. Again, it's the same question, right? Are you finding that either the different waves of startups are coming for seed, A round funding based on what we had before because of the different problems, or are the ones that you have in portfolio, are they leaning in, leaning out, pivoting? Where are you seeing?
Well, I mean, think about what's happened. Look at and I remember 5-6 years ago, when I first was asked to get on Zoom by Emergent, look at what's happened in 4 months. 30 million people has now grown to 300 million participants plus per day. We are in the middle. I just wrote an article, by the way, on Medium about the digital transformation post COVID-19. We're in the middle of an entirely different model. Look at us now today. 5 months ago, we would not be on a Zoom call doing exactly what we're doing today. Think of the opportunities for the companies that had pivoted that are less vulnerable because they've digitized their economies, because they've digitized their platforms. So what I'm seeing is companies that have really grasped this. Forget about COVID. This digital transformation was underway. In fact, McKinsey wrote an article, I remember from mine, 92% of the companies were doing their digital transformation strategies. This is just accelerated. So what I'm seeing is I'm seeing the companies come in, my EVA, right? So our business is dramatically up because of COVID. We do using AI for remote workers. And we were doing it before, but it's just accelerated. So what I'm seeing those companies come in, and I'm looking for the ones that have not just, so there's a lot of talk about artificial intelligence, but I'm looking for semi-supervised, unsupervised, ladder networks. I'm looking for the right stuff, the grit. And when I find that, when they're coming in, those are the companies that I believe this is the best time it's ever been for those companies to go to market. And our thing is, right now, I have a security company, AR, VR, facial recognition security company. Business is booming.
Cool. Yash, I mean, any thoughts on this? I mean, you kind of heard everybody else, and you certainly have a very enterprise focus to the whole thing. Are you seeing an acceleration, a pivoting? What are you seeing amongst the kind of out there in the area that you're looking at?
Great. So primarily what we are seeing is broadly classified in three buckets, right? So one is companies that are seeing tailwind accelerations right now. I mean, those are companies, we have a lot of companies in the whole continuum between marketing, sales and customer success. And today you look at any company, any industry, at least 50% of their OpEx is going into sales and marketing and customer success. And today what has happened, like one of the panelists responded, we're all sitting in Zoom calls, not in physical meetings. So digital, people are not going to events, people are not going to trade shows. Digital marketing is the only way to reach your customer. And existing customers are the best customers, are the best source for kind of preserving your revenue base and accelerating that and upselling that, especially in the SaaS world. So we have seen massive acceleration in companies that are focused in this digital marketing, sales acceleration, and customer success space. On the headwind side, we have seen some companies that relied in personal interaction. To give you an example, we had a company that was primarily building robots for taking an entire kitchen operation and making, like, for example, food serving and preparation, etc., completely automated. Temporarily, these were being deployed in college cafeterias and university cafeterias, etc. Temporarily, those are suspended. But what we do see is a next wave of opening up, because I mean, while we are all there in this kind of Zoom medium right now, but I don't think humans are fundamentally built for personal interaction. And VR is one way to recreate that personal interaction in the virtual world, but it is not going to sustain. I mean, there's a thing to be said about human touch. It's about the personal feeling that you sit across a table, exchange that ideas. So it's going to come back, but it's going to come back with a change. For example, I'm talking about this food robotics company. What we have seen during this COVID time is a massive pull from hospitals. Earlier, the deployment were in college cafeterias and corporate cafeterias, but now hospitals are demanding this because there are no staff that are now ready to go into a hospital settings, prepare food, and do it without any human touch, right? So this is where I think the existing companies, I don't believe in full pivots, but this is more of pivot in terms of your target market, where somebody which may have been number 2, number 3 in their wish list has gone up to number 1. And you see how Zoom has pivoted to number 1 in terms of any technology just over the last 3 months, right? So we see some changes like this, but otherwise, we do expect the world to return back, but there will be some fundamental changes that we expect to stay. So as a fund investment strategy, of course, we are continuing to invest in areas that are seeing massive acceleration. Supply chain, one of the analysts already mentioned, I think Henry already mentioned supply chain. We have been investing in those areas, but we're going to look at how sustainable the things that the entrepreneurs were working on is sustainable in the post-COVID world. So it's going to be one extra filter that we will add, but still, the fundamentals remain the same.
Excellent. So Francesco, I left you last on purpose. So don't feel like you were neglected. So Francesco, for those of you who don't know, he kind of is an analyst researcher who covers all the sectors and looking at all the things. So I mean, you're sort of our 100,000 foot guy. How do you see these things, and what do you see like the different sectors either rising or falling based on what has happened?
It's a great question, Richard. And the reality is that if I simply give you like an answer based on let's say like data for the last like 3 months or so, it would probably be like an incomplete answer to some extent, because I think that like the worst thing that we can do as investors overall, I mean, we're not like hedge fund guys, right? And what I'm trying to say is that we are here for the longer term. So usually like our businesses last for at least like 10 years. So probably like the worst thing that we can do is to react to this type of crisis and make decisions like for the very short term. So of course, as someone was saying before, I mean, there's been like a few intuitive sectors that have been affected more than others. So like negatively things like travel or hospitality or, you know, like those type of things are intuitively like the one that got crushed just like the last like 3 months. You don't have to think only to like the startup world, but if you look at, you know, like giant like colossal like Earths or, you know, like all these guys that are falling in pieces right now for different reasons, there was like intuitive, like to some extent, while there are other sectors, like everything that is online. I can't remember who was saying that before, that COVID is the best. Yeah, probably it was Sergio, right? That was saying that COVID is the best thing that happened to his portfolio. I do believe in to some extent. I mean, if you are like a software guy, an online marketplace guy, this is gold for you, like generally speaking, and also like for healthcare and other things, right? I guess that instead of focusing on one specific sector or another, it would be relevant to spend some time and thinking about like two different things. One is, what are the consequences, medium term and long term, of this type of changes, especially like changes in behavior. So right now, like the major thing that happened that I think Gary was mentioning before is that, like, for example, everyone migrated to, you know, like online calls or like Zooms or whatever it is, right? And that happened overnight. So potentially this type of shocks, what they've been able to do for us is consolidate the market towards like a couple of tools. So if you're like 3 years, you might actually explore like 20 different video call services. But when these things happen, you have to react pretty quickly. So you tend to consolidate around like a few services. So that was like point number one. Point number two, as I was saying before, like trying to think in a more like structured way about like longer term question. So is, for example, I'm just like shooting like a random example, but if we are right now more used to work from home, how is like this things gonna affect the market in 10 years time? And I'm not like simply talking about, you know, I mean, we work from so it seems like it changed like the team's dynamics. Yeah, good, fantastic. But how that affect, for example, like real estate? If in 10 years time, we don't need to have like offices anymore, is that really gonna affect like real estate companies that operate in professional space? And the final thing, since this panel is supposed to be on specific technologies, so AI, VR, and AR, I don't know if you noticed that, but probably you all did, but there has been, especially in AI, there are a couple of things that are a bit concerning to me. Yeah, probably concerning is the right word. One is, I do have an iPhone, as probably like many of you. And I noticed that since the beginning of the pandemic crisis, I wasn't really able to unlock my phone with face, right? Like face recognition was working super well before the outbreak, and then actually like it stopped working because I was always like wearing a mask or whatever, right? Then eventually, after like a couple of months, it started working better. So I started reading about it, and I actually found out that Apple released a specific update for that. So like right now, your iPhones are able to see your face with mask, and that was done on purpose. But eventually, if you think about it, this is not like the way in which facial recognition should work. I mean, you should be able like to accurately like design your face virtually and recognize a specific point of your face. If you actually cut your face in two, you are working with like the data points, which is probably not that accurate as it should be. So that's like one thing. And the second thing is that many AI models have been trained on the last like 3-4 months data, which, as someone else has said before, I think it was Harry at the very beginning, this is not like a usual circumstance. This is something that really happens like once in a lifetime type of thing. So the risk is that specifically for AI modeling, this might be like a very tricky point in time where we keep training our models on data that are not historic in that proper sense, right? This is really like a jump in the dark to some extent.
Cool. All right, so I have some lightning round questions. right? These, you get kind of 30 seconds to answer, all right? So the first question is, what is besides Zoom, what is the luckiest company that you can think of out of this whole thing? Henry?
Oh, God. Well, I had a long time to think about that one.
Lightning round, buddy. Let's go. Let's go.
All right. I'm gonna have to take a pass. I have to think about that one.
All right, Ingrid, luckiest company you can think of besides Zoom.
Instacart just became a billionaire because everybody ordered food online.
Excellent. Yash, what do you got?
So I would say, larger companies like Microsoft, Microsoft Teams has been growing like crazy. Their products are being used like multiple growth in multiple sectors within the same company. So Azure usage has been through the roof.
Perfect. Yeah, Francesco, what do you got? Luckiest company besides Zoom.
I'm gonna play safely and saying Netflix.
All right, Sergio.
Well, I'm Canadian, so Shopify. Shopify is the biggest time.
Chris, blow us away. What do you got?
The company that invents the vaccine, I would have to say.
That doesn't exist yet. That company does not exist. So
oh, it has to exist today? I think it probably does. We just don't know which one it is.
Yeah, but you can't. Nobody can retroactively invest in it. So Gary, what's your best company that you think of?
Amazon. Look about how many of us online are using Amazon today. I mean, it's completely dominated. It's made the world a safer place. So I think from my perspective, Amazon.
Gilad, what do you got?
Yeah, I have to say that I don't say that it's the best company, but I agree with what was said here that Instacart, their numbers are out of the roof. I don't know. I'd never dig in their business model. It might be amazing, might be not, but it's just astonishing what they've done in the last few months.
Okay, Chris, you get a second chance.
Yeah, I would have to agree with the Amazon, actually.
All right. So here's another question for you, which is kind of a little broader, which is, given everything that's going on, the changes in the world, what you're seeing, what is the pitch you wish somebody would give you? What's the problem set or the market solution going after that you wish somebody would just show up and say, look, I'm going to build a thing that does this, or a company that does that. What is the dream pitch that you would see at this moment? We're going to go backwards this time. Gilad, you're first.
Yeah, I mean, if you can fly to the moon with $2, cost, it's a dream pitch. But I think no one solved till today the AR side, and not sure that it's a problem that should be solved. But I think a lot of money went into that, not only Magic Leap, and it will be interesting to see if someone truly able to solve it.
Gary, dream pitch that you wish somebody would walk in the door with today.
Yeah, so from my standpoint, it's artificial intelligence unsupervised with compassion.
Okay. Chris?
It's probably personal mobility like drones, for people.
Sergio?
I will say kind of a supply chain operating system to easily deploy tech solutions on logistics for terrestrial, aerial, or maritime.
Okay, Henry, don't you have one of those?
We've got a couple.
All right. Francesco, what's your dream pitch that you wish somebody would walk in the door with today?
I'm not sure about like a dream pitch, Richard, but I think it will be something related to waste, because if that's something that we learned in the last 4 months, is that all these deliveries and all these Amazon things actually like are piling up waste over and over. So that would be like waste related.
So kind of the unintended consequences problem. Yash, what do you got?
I would say, healthcare, somebody who can unlock the potential of what Epic and Cerner in the US are kind of withholding due to their kind of domination in the market. Somebody who can unlock that potential, definitely. And to answer Francesco, we just invested in a robotic waste management solution. Trash picking is not an aspirational job, but there's a lot of trash being generated, so a lot of opportunities there.
Okay, so to be clear, I only take a 5% commission on any matchmaking that happens. Ingrid? What's the thing that you wish a company would walk in today and pitch you because you know that's exactly what needs to be done?
A fully virtualized hospital that is pandemic proof and solves not only this one, but also all future pandemics, so that we would have AR, VR, XR, fully enabled hospitals that can manage anything that comes our way.
Okay, Henry?
I'd look for something fully automated to optimize predominantly the ability to predict consumer demand. This comes back to Francesco's point on waste management, right? Huge amounts of consumption and overconsumption that ultimately have like 90% of the environmental footprint of any consumer company is in its supply chain. And the majority of that is wasteful uses of resources. So being able to automate that or predict demand is a huge problem to solve.
Interesting. So I think another question, and let me just ask a quick poll, just a raise of hands. Do you have an Oculus Quest? Okay. And that kind of is answering like one of the questions that I'm sort of seeing in the space, which is obviously lots of interest and enthusiasm about it, but the numbers are not there as rapidly and as quickly as people are looking for these things. You know, where do you see, you know, kind of well, let me change this back to another question, which is, you know, I think one of the fundamental investment questions for what you guys are doing and others is, do you see a difference, let's say during an emergency like this or a problem like this, a difference between the value in having financial VCs or enterprise kind of technology ventures VCs as investors in a startup? Is it, or has it quite honestly had very little difference to what has happened to people? Ingrid, I'm going to start with you this time.
Yeah, my opinion on this is that it's not as dependent on that. It's more dependent on the market, the industry, the type of startup, the type of relationships. And I think it was referenced before. So I think the more nuanced details matter more than just what big category you're in.
Okay, Gary?
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
No, just a question. Do you see that, like during this, was there any difference in value between having, let's say, enterprise kind of tech ventures type investors versus financial VC type backing, or at the end of the day, money's just money?
I mean, the situation, you want to have people that have the expertise in your particular area, right? You want to have people that have that knowledge, that have the contacts, that understand what you're doing, because they're part of the team. So from my standpoint, absolutely, 100%.
Gilad? In the startup I was involved, we had in each one 6 strategic investors, and we had American VCs usually. To raise money from strategic, it has its pluses and minuses. Usually if you bring one, you need to bring more than one, so you will not be categorized as, you know, a slave of one master. And it also depends which one you bring. The issue is when you come to a crisis, in general, there is the assumption that the corporate will be more busy in other fronts, while the VC will put all his focus to protect his investment. Especially if you need to bring very fast money, you know, as mezzanine or safe or something like that. But again, there are corporate VCs like, you know, Dell and Qualcomm and others that are doing amazing job.
All right, Francesco.
I tend to agree with Gary in the sense that I don't think that you can simply split VCs or like investors like in that way. It's probably, I think it was say related to the company or like specific market niches than you know, like considering everything as one market. And eventually, money is not simply money. Money is money plus something else, right? So whether you had like that skill set, that's probably like what is relevant. I mean, skill set in that specific market, technology, and operational skill set.
And Henry, do you see a difference in these things in your sector? I mean, due to the real world requirements of what you do?
Yeah, I think you, I think a specialized investor who understands the market they're investing in and can kind of go with you on that journey. I mean, just for example, the adoption cycles, what size of rounds you should be putting together and when, how you should be looking to kind of work to speed up those sales cycles, all that kind of value add that comes with a certain amount of strategic insight. But, I think to Gilad's point, any strategic investor worth their salt also operates independently from the market that they're focused in. So you avoid any of those kind of conflicting interests or kind of dragging any of those issues along with you. And also, I think the scale of capital that you require, and this comes back to the central point, right, which I always make to every founder, venture capital is not for everybody. It really depends on the nature of the company you're building, how quickly you need to scale, and how you need to go to market. I've seen plenty of startups that only raised, a couple of million and ultimately, exited for hundreds of millions over a very short period of time, and others that have required significant long-term investment from investors with deep pockets to go deep into funding rounds in order to get anywhere near the kind of full potential of the product or exit. So there's a lot of variety there, and there's a lot of different types of investors who you need to bring together to support the strategic objectives of the company.
All right, and Chris, do you see anything like differences in your market as well around these types of things, or is it highly weighted one way or the other?
Not highly weighted. I would say there are in Southern Asia and kind of Hong Kong and south of Hong Kong, CVCs are not as structured and organized as you might find in the US or in Japan or in places like that. So those kind of investments tend to be more a wealthy family that's running a kind of a family business. It could be a public company, but it's a family business that they control, and something strikes the fancy of that family office and they invest, rather than a structured CVC.
And Sergio, obviously there's a higher kind of like educational university research element side of things that you're looking at. Do you see that the enterprise VCs versus the financial VCs, do they have different values and propositions in this environment, or is it kind of fairly normalized?
Well, let's start with the beginning that nowadays money is a commodity. You can pretty much a startup get funding from a financial VC, from an enterprise VC, from an angel, from a family office, from like anyone, the government. So money is a commodity. I think there has been I think especially thanks to COVID, a shift that every single investor needs to bring value to the table. And if an investor, regardless of the category, cannot bring value to the table, they will be eventually ejected. So actually that's happening. In one of my portfolio companies that we're finishing a round, the entrepreneur decided to purchase back, clean the cap table. Every single investor that was not helpful or never brought any kind of strategic help or anything, the investor just didn't want to work with them anymore. So we cleaned the cap table. So talking about the cap table, right? So I think that for enterprise or more corporate kind of VCs, because not only we act as an investor, but most of the time we're also clients. And we kind of care more about the product advancement, product enhancement of the technology, because we keep asking about patents, about IP, because it has to have some value. It's not just a nice pitch deck. We need to have some kind of touchable value on the company. So I would say that, yes, for more and more, I don't know the case in Asia. I know many Japanese CVCs that are really helpful, that I'm working with them. And I think Gilad mentioned the amazing work that some of the American CVCs are doing. I think now is the time for corporations and enterprise VCs to jump and take more space and place in this kind of VC ecosystem, because we have something else that many of the financial VCs don't have, and that's the strategic value.
Okay. All right, so I have a final kind of lightning round question, and then we'll kind of wrap this up. The question is obviously something has happened in which there's a before and an after, right? And there's sacred cows and or assumptions from before, they're just truly no longer valid. And the most obvious one is the whole work at home or work from home question. If anybody's ever tried to sell kind of like remote capabilities or work from home capabilities pre-corona, you know, there's always a lot of like reticence on the part of management about whether the team will be effective or not and those things. So besides the whole thing that actually you can run large organizations in a distributed remote manner, what else have you seen has been something that previously everyone pushed back on or you know, would provide a lot of like friction on, that now it's just been proven that's not true anymore? So Henry, I'm going to start with you. Since I started with you at the beginning, you're going to be my start man again.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily entirely proven yet, but there's been an ongoing debate as to whether automation at the point of production within the supply chain would result in reshoring or kind of fragmentation away from the industrial basin of China and Asia. I think COVID has, you know, all the conversations I've been having with the heads of innovation, the CTOs and COOs at Henkel and Bosch and Daimler and these major European manufacturers saying, we cannot bear the risk any longer of having a dependence on a major point of output and production in a single geographic location or single industrial basin. So I think actually that kind of sacred cow may have, you know, finally we may start to actually see that fragment, and the conversation that's been going on for a long time may actually start to be realized in terms of actual strategy, and that'll have all kinds of ripple effects in terms of how the world works and where wealth or production or output as well as supply chains concentrate.
Cool. Ingrid, what are you seeing as a thing that previously was a problem, but now people are like, you know, that's not a problem anymore, let's keep moving?
I think making digital deals, being able to establish connections between startups and investors just globally. So I think it's going to cause not only shorter time span, like someone already referenced, that we've seen a contraction in the time cycles, but also the ability to maybe access investment globally that before maybe would have been just regional.
Great. Yash, what are you saying? Yash, sorry, confusing.
So in terms of trends, that is to say, especially in industries that are not undergoing digital, that were not on the bandwagon, I call it the late majority in this digital transformation. You could see that, you know, a lot of them wanted a bit of on-prem or a hybrid scenario. So that has transformed completely to cloud first or cloud only. So this whole cloud native has become completely accepted and wanted now. So in a lot of industries like manufacturing, MES systems, you look at an MES system, a lot of those things are on-prem today. Nobody uses a cloud. But even in those industries now, cloud has become a must-have. Same thing around PLM product suites, product lifecycle management suites, around ERP system. Cloud native has become a must-have today.
Great. Gilad, what are your thoughts? What's no longer a problem?
Yeah, two things that I don't know if they are not a problem, but they are becoming on the table. One, monitoring people's mobile phones for noticing them about they were near someone that was affected by COVID. I think in the past, at least like for my home country, Israel, it was a big no, and now you see opening to the idea that it brings also benefit to the general public. And the second thing is the ability for someone to take blood from his own vein at home without going to hospital and send it to test.
Okay. Francesco, what do you see as a thing that was previously true and a friction factor, but now is just really no longer part of the assumptions?
Do you want the easy answer or the longer answer?
Well, you've got a minute, so it's up to you, buddy.
The trivial one, I think, is business meeting and privacy. So, I mean, we are pretty comfortable, as Ingrid was saying before, like to do this type of events online, or, you know, even like meeting people online instead of meeting like face-to-face. So that's something that wasn't happening before. And also like giving up the privacy that we were used to have in order to have all the services that we need ready for use. But if you want to go a bit deeper into this like type of thinking, I think that like the main issue is that we were assuming something about the target consumer and his habits that are no longer true. So like the way in which people spend their time or what they do if they had the chance of. But I would probably like challenge everyone to share what we've done like more productively from a personal point of view during this pandemic. Instead, of course, we read like a ton of books. We spend time with families. but all like the good thing that we had in mind before this outbreak, probably, I mean, not all of us have achieved that.
Yeah. Strangely, it turns out I don't actually need a pair of handmade Italian shoes. So, Sergio, what's the thing that you think is no longer kind of like, you know, part of the assumption base?
And actually, it's one of the topics that we never talked too much here. And I think you mentioned that, you know, Oculus, I think just a couple of people have an Oculus device and I don't have it. AR and VR, virtual reality, there was a huge friction on that. And I have seen a lot of deep tech, you know, with research-based companies popping up here in Montreal, but with the friction that not being able to have the sales cycles at the enterprise level because corporations were reluctant to use that technology as a training. And now I'm checking a lot on VR, by the way. Why? Because through COVID, at least in the aerospace sector in Montreal, you know, with factories like Mitsubishi and Bombardier building the aircrafts, or Rolls-Royce and Pratt & Whitney building the gas turbine engines, these guys were training people globally. So people from all around the world were coming to Montreal to be trained on how to do the repairing, the overhauling of the gas turbine engine from Rolls-Royce and Pratt. And the same thing for the maintenance of the aircrafts. Now, these guys in the last 2-3 months, they were desperate to test this kind of new technology on VR to train virtually everyone globally. And just asking whatever price, just put the technology, we want to test it. And that was a big shift. So as an investor from AR, VR, it's a nice, maybe for gaming, you know, for tourist travel, whatever. Now it's a manufacturing necessity. So my big question would be, after COVID, with this kind of virtual training using AR, VR will remain, or we're gonna move shipping people to Montreal again to train physically? So very interesting times.
It is interesting. And just on a personal note, so I now, for the next 3 days, I have 7, and I kid you not, 7 meetings scheduled in VR, but not in like a collaboration thing, but actually in the Top Golf Pro Putt app, where we're going to actually have multiplayer and we play golf and talk, because the social interaction there of let's talk for a minute or two, and now I have to do something and then you have to do something, and then we go to the next hole, and it causes this natural break in the conversation to kind of think about things in the next sentence. It's incredible. And so I kid you not, I have 7 different meetings in the next 3 days that are all going to happen on the golf course because people are tired of talking on Zoom. Yeah, Ingrid, you were going to say?
Wanted to mention, it's intriguing to me that none of us mentioned video gaming industry, which has heavy AR and VR utilization. I've seen tremendous uptick in that, and already they were at the forefront of this anyway. And then the arts and education, I think we might see over the next decade a dramatic disruption in the educational landscape, as well as for the typical venues that now have all been shut down. So I think XR might be the solution to not completely lose that industry.
All right, Chris, you've been waiting patiently. So what's the assumption that is no longer true?
Well, it's pretty closely related to what we were just talking about, the virtual golf, and also with Francesco's response. But I would say the sacred cow that you really need to physically go to a conference to get value out of it. Some of these virtual conference platforms, which have breakout rooms and chat roulette and AI predictive introductions, I find are actually a better experience than a physical conference, not to mention you don't need to travel there and things like that.
Great. All right, Gary, I saved you for last because I know you got something big for us, man. What do you got?
Well, I mean, look at what's happened. So the contact that you need to have, it's just like you said, Richard, about the golf. People want to connect and touch base. So the companies that I'm really passionate about, I mean, think about how much different the world is. We can't have those lunches together. We can't fly. I can't even go from Palm Beach to my home in Silicon Valley now, so I'm way late here. We need that personal contact. Systems that allow us to get closer to one another and do relationship develop are critically important. As I said, the remote workforce management is here. It was happening anyhow. It's here to stay. Our lives have changed. We weren't before concerned, you know, if we went into a store and somebody tried to check your temperature, you'd call the police. Now that the situation's about safety, We have to wear masks to go outside. If you would have told me that 6 months ago, I would say that, you know, you're invading my rights. But now it's changed because of safety. So let's think about ways we can incorporate that, and it's going to happen for the future, how we can incorporate that and make money and make the world a little bit better place. It's changed. We're willing to give something up so we don't die.
Absolutely. In fact, I would say one of the insights or one of the assumptions that I think is no longer true is that certainly people of our generation and perhaps a bit older before this, when someone who's a little younger would say a sentence like World of Warcraft friends are real friends, we'd all kind of roll our eyes and go, yeah, back in the basement, kid, right? But the thing, of course, is that we're seeing is that actually, yes, you know, I mean, interacting with people at a distance through these mechanisms, whether it's direct like this or via proxies and avatars in games and things like that, is like, yeah, actually, you know, these friends are friends.
Think about it. Bicycle sales are going through the roof. They can't stock enough bikes. Electric bikes, which were slow to start, have taken off like crazy. Monopoly, board games, simple life has come back in a way we've gone back 25 years. It's simple again. And we have a lot more time to spend with our families. How many of us are here? I got my dog is alongside of me. If I did that 6 months, yeah, see?
Lola's my co-pilot. She usually makes an appearance in these things, so yeah.
Exactly. I mean, we've changed in a way. It's really, really good because we're much more efficient. And I got to tell you, a lot of people are really happy because they're doing the things they want.
Yes. So on that cheerful note, I'd like to first of all thank all of you. You know, we're certainly in a new era. You're all at the very much at the forefront of this, of helping to make it happen and to shape it. I'd like to thank Elena for bringing it together. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it back to her. And then basically what we're going to see is the future as a group of very enthusiastic people kind of tell us about how they want to change the world. Elena, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, Richard, for great moderation. Thank you very much, dear panelists. Now we are starting our pitching session, and the first project who will pitch, it's called Shield IoT. Udi, are you here?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me and see me? Cool. So
just one sec, just a short reminder for investors. We would be very, very grateful if you can fill in the score sheet which we provided to you before. Thank you. Please.
Thank you, Elena. So hello, everyone. My name is Udi Solomon, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Shield IoT. Before we start, I'd like to thank you all for this opportunity and actually for the really interesting panel. Okay, let me just share my screen and we'll get going. So I hope you're able to see my presentation. So good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Udi Solomon, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Shield IoT. Shield IoT, we're an IoT cybersecurity company, a software company based out of Israel. We focus on securing mass-scale B2B IoT networks. When we talk about the IoT, the Internet of Things, we all know it's a huge market, estimated at over $300 billion today, impacting every aspect of our life, from healthcare to transportation, from energy to smart cities. But today, more and more, we see security as becoming an inhibitor, delaying the deployment of this mass-scale network, simply because it's a challenge. You have so many different devices, applications, protocol, and doing it at scale of millions of devices is challenging. Take this together with the fact that we're seeing an escalation on the threat level with attacks going up almost 10 times more, creating significant monetary losses, but also impacting critical services, in some cases even life-threatening. And so this takes us to Shield IoT and what we want to do. What is our vision? Our vision is that using the Shield IoT CoreSet AI security solution, we will enable the growth of this mass-scale IoT network. We will enable them to grow securely. Based on over a decade of research in MIT and CoreSet AI research in MIT and Haifa University, the Shield IoT offers three unique game differences when you look on IoT and IoT security. First of all, it's about detection and accuracy. If you have networks of millions of devices, you cannot simply have millions of false alarms per day. There's no business case for that. In every benchmark that was done for Shield IoT, we were at least 5 times less false alarms, in some cases up to 20 times less false alarm. Secondly, it's almost an agnostic solution being applied across different devices and applications today, almost protocol agnostic, and we're able to scale to over 1 million devices today. Who are we targeting? Who are our customers? So the first one are what we call global IoT brands. These are large device manufacturers that are also service providers, and IoT is a key part of their operation. The value we provide them is to secure their mass scale IoT networks, not just in the future, but applicable to their existing installed base now, today. The second type of customers we work with, and I call them customers, are large IoT integrators. These are integrators that operate across multiple IoT projects, B2B projects across multiple use cases, and require a single security solution to ad hoc used across all. And this is the unique value that Shield IoT provides them. And in the 2 quarters, we were able to do 8 successful POCs with large integrators such as NTT Data in Japan and Italy, NCS and ST Engineering in Singapore, and others. We don't just provide them security, but in order to build the business case of the IoT, we also help them, we mentioned Corona here, we also help them in discovery, visibility, and remote control, all of them supporting to reducing their operational costs. The solution itself is a software platform enabling to secure any device, application, or network with no need for any network changes. This is pure software. Development resources, it's not an API-like solution, or unique security expertise. At the end of the day, well, IoT was here long before us, and then put the marketing aside, it's a jungle. You have a lot of devices, applications, protocol, lighting, cameras, public transport, meters, etc. How do you protect them? So we divide this world into 2 simple topologies. One, devices connect to the cloud via gateway, such as lighting and meters, or devices connect directly over 3G, 4G, future 5G, etc. network. Shield IoT, our solution, enables to secure any device or application, whether we have a software which is deployed on third-party gateways to provide protection for the gateway and the connected sensors, or we deploy a network anomaly detection solution in the cloud to analyze an agentless approach to analyze the communication between the devices in the cloud. We also provide a centralized management acting as an extension to existing systems, enabling small teams to cost-effectively manage security across large deployments. And we focus a lot on, as I said, it's based on over 12 years of academic research, multiple patents in process, or over 40 academic papers. Some of them are with Turing Award winners. As I said, we work on different B2B IoT use cases, but definitely the key use case, which involves multiple applications, is actually smart cities. In this example, you can see Signify, formerly known as Philips Lighting. They're the largest lighting service provider in the world with over 1 billion devices today. They recently selected Shield IoT to secure all their smart city gateways. And I'm also happy to say that their CEO also made now a decision to basically release a new security service towards the end of the year globally to the end customers based on the Shield IoT solution. So what sets us apart in this very chaotic IoT world? So again, the focus about mass scale, being the only one that can effectively do it at scale, do it agnostically across different devices and applications, and do it accurately, leveraging the core set technology. The business model, it's an annual subscription based on number of devices with quantity-based discounts. Of course, the more devices are being monitored and secured, the annual price per device goes down. And last but not least, the team. We bring on over 20 years of experience from security, big data analytics, communication, embedded systems. I guess today it's called IoT, from large corporation as well as early stage startup, combined with, I would say, unique academia background. Professor Feldman, our chief scientist, is a world-renowned Corea AI researcher. Ohad Levin, the CTO and co-founder, for example, in Akamai, one of the leading, he led the development of the big data analytics security platform that today sells in over $1 billion. And myself, I used to run Checkpoint Cloud and virtualization security and advanced threat prevention product lines. We also shifted for example, with the Corona, moving from a POC that used to take us 3 to 4 months to a one-day SaaS offering and POC to cut the sales cycle. So there's also good things here. And a little bit about the funding history. We did a seed round in the summer of 2017, led by Janvas Capital Partner, USVC, for $1 million. And another pre-A bridge round of 2.6 million last summer, participated by Janvas and existing investors as well, but led by, with Innogy, which is a large German energy company and the largest energy distributor in Europe. And finally, we're now doing our A round with the size of 5 to 6 million with existing investors to participate. And yeah, I'd be happy to answer any question and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Questions?
Hi, it's Gilad. You didn't touch do you have actual revenue now?
No. We have 20K here, 40K here from paid proof of concept. The first paying customer is Signify Philips Lighting, where we're talking about, it was already approved by procurement, business unit manager, CEO, CFO, and chief security officer. And the contract is supposed to be something around 250K ARR, the initial contract. And we expect to get it shortly, basically. Based on our estimations, we expect to have 3 paying customers by the end of the year.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you, Udi.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, can I say one thing?
Yes.
I have a suggestion. Maybe it's interesting for you. The former chief security officer at Apple is a very good friend of mine. He would be a great board of advisor. I have him on the board of my venture studio. If it's interesting for you, if you want to send me a note, I'd be happy to hook you up with him. It helps.
Perfect. I'd be happy. I'd be happy. I'll send you my, I'll just send you, type in the chat my email, and I'd be happy to have this connection. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Anytime.
Yeah, Udi, you can also send it to me. I will connect you guys. No problem.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Gary.
Sure.
Okay, our next project is Easy Life. One moment. Nick, are you with us? Nick, you need to mute.
Do you hear me? Do you hear me? Do you see me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. You can.
Perfect, perfect. So, good afternoon. I'm in London. It was very interesting listening to the panel. I have to say, I'm much more optimistic that we are getting back to normal, and not a new normal, but a normal. One reason for that is because I had COVID in March and I didn't die. And therefore, you know, it's not automatically that when you get COVID, you die. And the second, I see here in London, but also in Germany and everywhere over Europe, you know, especially young generations, they start after this period of, you know, lockdown, really want to go out and to live life in fullest. So I think, yes, there are some paradigms that possibly change. We always work remote. We have 4 offices. We are in London, we are in the US, we are in India, and we are in Ukraine. So we are used to work remote. On the other side, I see also that people, some people work better at the office, other people work better at home. So probably there will be a mixed model of working and a new philosophy of working in companies. So said that, my optimism tells me that people will wish to do things they were used to do, but probably with better choices, with less waste of time. And what we're trying to do with easy, applying technology, but also human science is exactly to solve the problem what we have today online, which is too much searching. Google got us used to it. Too many choices where we don't have the criteria to decide what is really good for us, because ratings that platforms give or services give don't match necessarily with our preferences or with our profile. And of course, too much advertising. You know, I don't have to tell you what happens if you ask for something in the internet. The next 3 weeks, you're bombarded with the same advertising for the same products or similar products. So this is really annoying. And therefore, you know, I have an experience. I'm probably the oldest in the round of the presenters. I have already a history of internet. I started 25 years old with internet, with several companies. You know, what I see is internet is still quite static, quite average. And what we want to do is to use technology, but also this emotional sentiment dimension in order to make it more personal, more customized, more proactive. And this is why with an excellent team, I started 2.5 years ago, Easy, the adventure of Easy. And I will present shortly myself. You know, I'm co-founded already one large company in the stock exchange. It's worth 8 billion today. It's Scout24 AG. It's a German company. Actually, I'm half German, half Italian, and now living in London. Worked in the venture capital arena with 360 capital partners and was at McKinsey quite a long time, Milan office and Munich office. So, and I teamed with, you know, I'm the oldest one and my team is very young. So I teamed with Mark. He's a co-founder. He is also the CIO. He is a wizard of artificial intelligence. And we have other 20 people, very young people. You know, our average age, if I'm an outlier, but our average age of the team is 26. So we, you know, match the experience with the enthusiasm of the young team. What is Easy doing? So what we're doing, what we're saying is we're maximizing the day. We apply artificial intelligence and psychology. Our psychology team is in Munich to filter out of the internet the best recommendations, you know, in lifestyle, but also in shopping, based on preferences, personal preferences, of course, but also on personality and especially on mood. And this is something which is quite unique and it's not easy on the other side. Therefore, we try to make it easy because this means a very personalized and proactive internet. What does Easy do? It goes into the internet, filters all the information that are in the internet and picks very few recommendations tailored for you or for your group of friends. Then the only thing that you have to do is to accept. So therefore, we have to be good enough to make recommendations that appeal to the user. Once you have accepted, you know, everything is executed. You can book, you can buy, you can. So everything, we are a kind of aggregator of the complexity of the internet, tailoring it to the single user. But we have also the social dimension, because of course you're not going to the restaurant or the cinema or doing some sports alone most of the time, but you want to invite your friends. You want to have a social life. And therefore, Ease is also a social platform that allows to organize, to plan, and to get together with your friends and your community. So how it works, it's a smart app, as I said, driven by AI, but also by psychological models that are integrated into the algorithms. And you can plan your day, you can plan your weekend, you can plan what we say your life at the very end, because the user is the interface to all these interactions in daily life. So you can be inspired, and or you can even then, of course, we give the freedom to the user also to create their own plan, but still very tailored, very specific to the user. And this is for the moment in the lifestyle areas, which is going out the evening, fitness, concerts. We will add shopping and travel. Travel in the last 3 months was dead. Therefore, we put the project on standby. But as a matter of fact, you can imagine this. You open the app in the morning and ask like to an assistant, like a personal assistant, what I'm going to do today. And you get recommendations that are matching your special mood that day, your personality, your preferences, so that you have a better or more fulfilled day and you enjoy your day and your life better. So what is the business model? It's no advertising. As I said before, people are annoyed by advertising. Facebook, Google, all advertisement-based model, intruding privacy of people. So it's free for user and no advertising. Our business model, and therefore we have to be good in giving recommendations, is commission. So it's transaction based. So if someone books a restaurant, or if someone buys something, or books a travel, then we get a commission of around 3 to 5% of a transaction value. And of course, you see with this, we have to be social, because we have to have a very broad base of users. It's a B2C business, it's a little bit unusual. Now starting a social B2C business, but supported by new technologies, by artificial intelligence. Yeah.
I'm very sorry. Can you please wrap it up? It's already almost 9 minutes.
Okay, so the market is huge. The market is growing. The addressable market is the market of lifestyle. The serviceable market is the one of the assistant, let's call it, supported by technology. What are we doing today? We are already in 27 cities, whereas London is our launch and test. We had already 46,000 installs in London, and we are testing in New York. So what is the projection? This year, due to COVID, we have to revise it a little bit. It's a progression of active users in 4 years, where we plan also IPO. It's going to be 30 million active users that correspond to projected revenue of 180 million. So what is the fundraising? I invested myself. We had so far mainly seed. We have almost 2 million, almost 3 million euros in seed funding. We have at the moment still in the bank 1 million. We are aiming at a major round in the fourth quarter 2020, but we would be very happy to accelerate the traction with a bridge of up to 1 million now for the month of June, July, in order to recover a little bit the standby situation due to COVID. So, and that was it. You can download the app on App Store. We are launching the Android version in July. And any questions you may have, you can address me or Mark as I said, co-founder and CIO.
Yeah, thank you. We just have very little time. We will connect everyone, and you can ask any questions now.
How do you differentiate yourself from the other many apps who say they do the same thing?
Can you mention few? Because, you know, many say, you know, the point is what we are doing, we're, you know, I'm not blue-eyed saying that there are no competitors. Of course, what we are trying to do, there are competitors in the sentient artificial intelligence, but they are creating mainly softwares in order to be purchased by large companies like Google or Amazon and so on. So they don't have really a business model. They are doing good stuff. And on the other side, there are, of course, companies that are trying to offer everything, but not personalized. There are a lot of you know, platforms, for example, for going out the evening, where you have listings. You go in and you get, for example, I want to take OpenTable or to take TripAdvisor or take all those. They give you the complete list, but they don't tailor it and customize it to your profile. And when I'm saying profile, we are taking into account also emotions. That means people react, and the engine, our algorithms react in a different way if you have a bad mood and you are an introvert personality than if you have a good mood or you are another personality. And this, I think, it's a very specific USP that at the moment we are not observing at any competitor that wants to build up a B2C business model.
Yeah, Nick, this is Gary.
Yeah, Gary.
Yeah, so, you know, with Eva, I did a lot. I have an AI tool that did a lot of sentiment analysis, unsupervised AI, I mean, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And here's the challenge, and I'm also a clinical psychologist. So the concern I have is that when you mix the two pieces together, it's great that you can have these insights, but the key is to really have predictive insights that the system generates, not having, we didn't get into exactly what the psychologists are doing. Are they using Rorschachs? How you're doing your analysis with them. But what you got to do is you got to look at how to automate that to make the thing as one seamless integration. I'm on the board of a company that does something similar, .in. So what I would suggest is that you have a really interesting idea, because personalization and this whole thing around sentiment analysis and helping people make better decisions is cool, but it's got to be really seamless. And I didn't hear that.
Okay, try the app. I would suggest try the app, download the app and play with it. I'm very happy to have a conversation more in detail what we're doing with the psychological models, because of course we are not Google and Facebook, so we don't have all this data. So what we're using the artificial intelligence is mainly to get the information from the internet. So we are connected to, for example, for restaurants, to OpenTable, TripAdvisor, all this stuff. And we are filtering this with, but we are doing it a little bit different than, for example, Google. Google has a lookalike artificial intelligence logic. What we are trying to do is, understand, for example, one venue based on the comments of several platforms of the users, and the users have certain personalities, what kind of features this venue has. And then we match the feature of this venue or this event or this internet object to the profile of the user. And the profile of the user comes not, of course we learned about it, but we have a top-down approach. So we start from methodologies of psychology because we don't have the data at the very beginning of the user. Even if we have 50,000 downloads, that's nothing. And so we take the theoretical models and the knowledge from literature, psychological literature, in order to identify the starting profiles. And then over time, by the decisions and by the behavior of the user within the app, we are able to match more and more the profile, the expectation, the prediction, what someone would like to have with what we are filtering out of the internet.
Yeah, but that's
you
a
guys.
great thing.
I'm very sorry. We cannot really move on, but we're ready to arrange a call to.
Very good. Very happy.
Yes. Sorry, guys. We just want everyone to have time.
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
So our next project is Peloton Health. Are you guys here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. You can hear me well?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So good morning, good afternoon. My name is Inon, and I'm co-founder and CEO of Peloton Health. So Yash and Ingrid, I don't know if this will be your dream pitch, but at least it's in the area that you mentioned of healthcare and virtual digital healthcare and so on. So stay tuned. So Peloton Health is a mental health collaborative care and evidence-based therapy for data-driven treatment for people that are going under mental health or behavioral health condition. If we look on the mental health in the US only, there are over 47 million adults experience mental illness every year. That's higher than diabetes and cancer together. The numbers will just keep on growing due to COVID-19. We discussed all kinds of impacts of the pandemic, but over 50% of the people in the US are reporting negative impact on their mental well-being. This cost the US healthcare system over $200 billion, and due to the ripple effect, almost similar amount of indirect costs, lost in day job, caregivers or family member given treatment to loved one. There is an almost similar amount of cost there. Looking at Europe, we see the same number and the same level of magnitude, over 110 million people. Of course, the same impact on COVID, huge economic burden of more than $340 billion. And again, the indirect cost impact. When we look into the challenges, there are all kinds of several challenges like cost and stigma and so on, but I want to focus on two specific ones. One is the workforce shortage. We see a growing demand and the supply is limited. We see up to 50% clinician shortage, and the number will not pick up. So the gap will just keep on growing, and there need to be a different solution, different technology, a digital solution to bridge the gap eventually. Treating mental health is different. It requires a multidisciplinary team of therapists, psychiatrists, a case manager, and people in the community, a family member, a peer, a friend to facilitate the process. They are lacking the integration. There is a lot of blind spot in the process, which eventually create a broken and a fragment service delivery. At Peloton, we provide a person-centric virtual collaboration. We connect the entire circle of care, the primary care, the mental health, the psychiatrist, the therapist, of course, the person himself, and people in the community around a unified treatment plan. We use evidence-based practices like CBT, EBT, and other in order to improve the case manager and the productivity of the team. We see in our vision a tool which is Asana-like or Monday.com like that. There are libraries and workflows that the therapy can simply adapt a plan, share it with the team, and they can collaborate on that platform, which is specifically dedicated for healthcare treatment and recovery. Our solution combines with a patient-facing mobile app that allows the user with access and control of this recovery plan, a care portal for the providers and the caregiver with dashboard, workflows, and alerts, and the data analytic platforms that provide insights and alerts. We are talking about AI in these sessions, and this is where we see it as part of our solution. So unlike other chronic conditions like diabetes or hypertension, for example, where there is a biofeedback, someone is taking his blood test, knows his sugar level, and he can control it with insulin and other. There is no biofeedback in mental health. Someone cannot check his blood level to know his depression level. This is where digital biomarkers collected from smartphone wearable sensors can give an indication on the person's behavior. So information like sleeping profile, activity level, location, digital assessment, all of that are interpreted by the system. And by that can give early signs and provide an effective intervention. We see our AI vision as the ability to predict symptoms and to implement a personalized and adaptive treatment plan. We placed our KPI on the healthcare triple aim for improving outcome by better adherence and improving the dropout in the recovery process, reducing the cost of readmissions, and improving the caseload productivity of the healthcare team. Our business model is a B2B one. We target healthcare provider in a value-based care model. We have taken a more innovative approach, and we are doing a revenue share on the reimbursement load productivity. Instead of just collecting money from the providers, we take a shared risk, and based on their performance, we charge them on the solution. When we achieve evidence-based level, we go to the next level, which is the healthcare and payers in a PMPM model, per member per month, a subscription fee for the enrolled patient to the platform. A bit of our status. So the company won 2 grants from the Israel Innovation Authority. The last one is a $1 million win, where half of that is a grant. This program was backed by the Israeli Ministry of Health, who acknowledged and approved the solution. We launched our first product and already gained the first paying customer in Israel. We have a good pipeline, including one of the HMOs in Israel. And we use Israel as our beta site for data collection and to test and validate the solution. We started the US acceleration program. We discussed with tens of providers by now. We got a very good feedback on the solution. And our aim is to launch into the US market by the end of the year, as well as launch the second generation of the product. We are a team of 3 co-founders, Dr. Amir Tal, a mental health rehabilitation expert, Amir Natan, a serial entrepreneur, founder of several startups, including one exit, myself, leading R&D organization in the area of consumer application and enterprise software for over 20 years. Yael and Khalil are complementing the team, leading the product and technology. Till date, we raised $400K. Some of them are grants, some of them are our money and the angel rounds. We are now going under a safe round as a bridge to the seed. The attractiveness of this round is that any dollar that is put into the company now is matched by the Israeli Innovation Authority grant. So actually we use that to extend our runway. And we are planning to use the funds for building the product next generation, doing a case study for the evidence-based, and launching the first pilot at the US. Thanks. We'll be happy for questions.
Yeah, this is Gary. Can you hear me?
Sure.
I actually built a aging in place company using artificial intelligence, so I know a little bit about this. And I think what you're doing, if you look at I think it's great that you're being able to bring everybody together, because if you look at the aging problem, just in the US, there are 46 million people at the age of 65 or above, and that number is climbing. Look at the Asia. So one of the things, if you kind of move into that environment, which I'm sure you've thought about, it's a gold mine. And it's something that's really needed because it's a fractured system. The whole idea of elder care is broken and it needs to be fixed. There need to be technologies just like you have, because the mental health is critically important for seniors.
Yeah,
and bringing this, go ahead.
Yeah, you are definitely right. We looked into several verticals. Our core knowledge of the team is coming from mental health. So we decided to choose that segment at the beginning. But yeah, we see the platform potentially evolve into other vertical and segments. So I completely agree with you that there is a potential there as well.
I can introduce you to Zemply, which is one of my portfolio companies. The CEO is a Stanford MBA, undergraduate engineering. You might have some commonalities with her. This market that you're in right now, there's a lot of opportunity for funding, right? if it's tweaked right.
Yeah,
But
we'll do it after the event. We'll do it after the event.
Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, sure.
Any questions?
Yes, I do. This is Sergio from Canada. Great job, Yinon. I mean, we have been invested in a couple of digital health solutions like that, but in different areas than mental health, and it's right now proven quite successful in COVID times. Okay, what do you do in terms of regulation? Because like every single company that we invest in digital health had to face the regulation part, you know, HIPAA compliant, GDPR compliance, in Canada is PIPA compliant, in Europe there's another compliance. Like the regulation part for digital health is heavy. So how are you dealing with that?
Right, so there are two parts of the regulation. One is the data privacy, as you mentioned, HIPAA and GDPR. So we are HIPAA compliant, and we will be GDPR compliant also during next year. We have the background in that. We built, I built healthcare platform for 3 years before joining Peloton and more. So we are handling that. The second part of the regulation is talking about FDA, CEs and that. So the system at this stage is a clinical decision support system. So the decision making eventually is the therapist. We provide it as a tool to the therapist, we bring him the insights, and he takes the decision upon. At the level of decision support, you don't need the FDA. Once we kick in the prediction algorithm, and then we give recommendation on the treatment, this is the place where we will need also to address the FDA, and it's part of our roadmap and plan.
Just real quick, how do you get coverage? What kind of malpractice coverage do you have, or any kind of director's coverage?
In terms of reimbursement or? Liability.
Someone commits suicide while they're using your platform. Who carries the liability?
So the liability is on the provider side. We provide it as a tool for the provider. It's a tool that allows the care team to do a more, I would say, a better job. Of course, the alerts and the liability is something that need to be taken into consider. This is why I said we set to ourselves a strategy starting as a clinical decision support system, and by that the liability is with the provider.
Hey, Gilad, hold on. One of the things that, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, one of the things you might want to think about, I just went through this, and I actually, with Exempli, so we actually got down through to get Medicaid reimbursement, and I went through that entire struggle, but we figured out how to do it. So like I said, I can introduce you to Exempli, and you can talk to the CEO about it, but we just went through it. It wasn't that hard, actually, once we figured it out.
Yeah, I didn't display the slide, but in the slide deck that was spread to you, it's there. There are specific reimbursement code of Medicare and Medicaid and also the private insurance on collaborative care. So providers that are implemented the methodology are getting incentivized and reimbursed for doing that. They are not able to do it at scale, and this is where we kick in.
Guys, I'm sorry, I need to interrupt you. Okay, you will talk. Gilad, did you want to ask anything?
Just to, it's a very small question from my side. The angels that you have, can you expose their name?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'll be happy to know.
Sure.
Okay, we will do it after the event. Thank you very much, Yinon. We have one more project. Yes. Lesotho. Sorry for my interruption, but I want to have that everyone has enough time and the same amount of time. Hi, Pavel.
Hello, hi. How are you? So guys, so first of all, I'm the last one, which is supposed to make you very, very happy. And you will be able to go back to your stuff and home. Listo is a very interesting Israeli-Japanese startup, and I'm talking with you from Israel, Haifa, and a co-founder, a partner of mine, is now in Tokyo, Japan. So it's a bit late for him, but I will represent the two of us. But what we are doing, we're basically extracting and tagging information, any kind of information from any kind of media in any language. We're doing it for multiple applications, but we targeted one as we do right now, and I'll tell you about it in a moment. But just for a second about us, Nir is a Japan-born entrepreneur. He's been doing quite a bit of stuff. He founded an e-commerce company in Japan and managed it until his recent endeavor. I've been in e-commerce for the last 20 years, been a significant part of shopping.com, first shopping comparison engine, was responsible for the data team, for the catalog team, managed the European operations for shopping.com, and then after the acquisition by eBay, I was responsible for setting up and managing the operations of content and data structuring for eBay Global. So what we're doing, what we're targeting as a first segment for our technology is e-commerce. And the reason for this is pretty simple. But what we do, the sellers in e-commerce are able to get an immediate benefit using the technology. And you know, one of the things that you mentioned is who won as a result of the COVID situation during the panel was Amazon. And what we want to do is slightly democratize and de-Amazonize some technologies that are available to them and not available to the rest. So basically, think about yourself, what you and any other user does when shopping online. Is first going to the marketplace or site of your choice, making some search. And after the initial search, so here I will be kind of searching for Adidas t-shirts on eBay Germany, you'll be refining the results of your search with some filters. So for example, after doing this, I would want to find an appropriate size for a t-shirt. But here's an interesting thing that you will see when you will do it. And this is a screenshot taken 2 days ago. You will see that out of 12,000 items, more than 5,000 don't have any specifications of the size. Now the question is, what does it mean? What does it mean for you? What does it mean for the site? And the answer is very simple. This information is simply not tagged with any information by the seller. And as a result, when you as a buyer click on any of these sizes, all the deals that are not marked with this information are simply going to disappear from your site, which basically means about 40% of inventory will become invisible when you click one single attribute. And of course, it relates to many different attributes. And the reason why this is happening, why it's not tagged, is because the responsibility for bringing this information is lying with the seller. The marketplace tells the seller to tag this information so it can be used on a marketplace. And if the seller fails to do it, he is here. He is inside the unspecified items, and he is just about to disappear after the slicing. And the reason why the seller doesn't do it is because it's very complicated. It takes a lot of time. Every marketplace has its own format, how it should be done. It really takes loads of time. It takes about 4 minutes for a single product on a single marketplace. It's done completely manually today. And if you're a seller that sells about 1,000 items, which makes you a small seller, you'll need 4,000 minutes to tag your inventory for a single marketplace. You sell in more than one marketplace, which is usually the case, it's double the effort. And if the market changes the structure, it will require you to tag it again. And this kind of thing happens about 3 to 4 times a year on every single marketplace. Our solution solves this problem and provides a service which we called tagging as a service. The first product that we have is a product for textual tagging, which basically extracts the information completely automatically from the texts. We can do it in numerous languages very, very, very quickly using our technology. We also have this capability to extract and tag this information based on the images. And of course, the winning thing is that we can combine the two capabilities together. As of this moment, we're active on the Japanese market. We already have about 50 customers on the Japanese market. Some of them are small, like family wine shops. Some of them are huge. I don't know if you're familiar with the Japanese market, but Big Camera is our customer. Big Camera is the #1 retailer of electronics in Japan. Big Camera for Japan is like Best Buy in the US. One of our customers is a company called Nitori, which is a main competitor for IKEA in Japan. So basically, we're active in Japan and we plan to expand our activity in Japan. We're currently the efficient partner of Rakuten, the largest marketplace in Japan, and now getting into Yahoo as well. But we do want to expand our efforts in Europe and in the US. So this is like a small list of the customers that we have. And the business model that we use is really, really simple. We're classical SaaS. We charge per request. Basically, if a seller has 1,000 products, it's going to be 1,000 requests. We provide bundles, monthly bundles, to kind of create a more stable MRR for us. And it's really simple. And the results are super quick. We actually see the uplift of page views and uplift of sales as a result. The average that we monitor is about 10 to 12% uplift, but we do have more radical cases where we documented uplift of 87% in sales. We have another case which we documented with 56% uplift in sales just 2 weeks ago with one of the customers. We have a significant kind of rollout plan that we have in Japan and outside of Japan, integrating with major marketplaces, and we started discussions with eBay Germany already. You can see kind of our growth pattern, which we basically measure in sellers that we want to serve, and the number of marketplaces we want to be connected to. Our current MRR is about $30,000 and growing. The list of competitors is fairly high. I mean, we do have people in the industry, but nobody is doing exactly what we do with the depth that we do. We can easily compete with our solutions with guys like Google. And the reason for this is simple. We focus on e-commerce, not on everything. So the depth of extraction and precision of extraction that we provide is really extraordinary. We also think that the market opportunity for this is pretty big. In Japan, where we are right now, we see about 20,000 applicable sellers, but the market in the US and EU is really, really, really big. We are looking for a funding of about 2.5 million euros, which should enable us achieve our next milestone, which is going to be over 300 sellers during the next year, hooking up with 6 platforms and generating about 4.5 million ARR as a result. And of course, for this, we are going to grow our sales team. We are going to grow our dev and training efforts. So this is pretty much about us. I'll be happy for your questions.
Question.
What do you anticipate your major challenge to be?
So we have a number of challenges, and I think one of the challenges are different linguistical issues that we come across. We need to integrate a number of languages with a number of marketplaces. It requires training, it requires model, so there's a challenge there. Another challenge is integration with large customers. So we started this whole business trying to hook up with marketplaces. We figured out very quickly it doesn't work, the sales cycle is crazy. We went down to the small sellers or sellers where our contribution and understanding is unmatched. So our sales cycles went down to 2 weeks on average and less, sometimes it's 2 days. But we want to get back there. We want to get back to the major platforms. And integration with these guys, from my experience with eBay, can be a challenge. So these are just a few. There are more, but I'm not sure that we have all the time. I'd be happy to expand more.
Thank you.
So this is Sergio Pavel from Montreal, from Canada. There was a company in Montreal doing e-commerce search with AI for the, and that was recently acquired by a larger company. I'm gonna put it on the chat, but the reason why they got acquired is because the sales cycle with these brands, retailers, takes forever. So have you dealt before, like before doing this startup? Like, do you have, I don't know, any kind of co-founder that has experience doing this sales with retailers, brands?
So we do, and we also partner with really like big guys like Rakuten, who recommend us for their sellers. There are 50,000 of them on the platform. And I agree with you that selling to these guys can be an issue. But first of all, I figured out that selling to an end customer like a seller, once we provide the value, and we provide it very, very quickly, is actually not that bad. So as I said, our average sales cycle today is 2 weeks. Some of the deals are being closed in a day. And COVID did disrupt our channels of sales, because before that, we used to do it through some kind of major sellers conferences, which are not there any longer. Although they have shifted into webinars and web conferences where we do see traction. And one more thing where we also consider going is B2B businesses that struggle to provide an appropriate experience, again, search and navigation experience to their business customers. And this is also where we see additional potential.
Okay. Thank you very much, Pavel. Thank you very much, everyone, for your participation. Looking forward to receiving your feedback on the startups. And please keep in touch. See you guys all again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job, Elena. Thank you.
Good day.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Elena.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.